I didn't do some things I should have done, and I did do some things that I should have done. And ultimately, it's consistency at the end of the day.
Hey, Growthitect, welcome back. I am Tyler Stumla, your host of the Growthitect podcast, and that is Alexander Buckridge, founder of Studio Bucky and a frequent guest of the Growthitect podcast. If you're a long-term listener, then you've already listened as he launched his firm and started winning work. And now we get to check in on him just over a year into firm ownership and hear how he won his biggest project to date, including his strategic approach and the tiny details that ultimately won over the client. So listen in, because it is always great when we get to bring a bit of Bucky's Irish luck into the podcast. Before we dive in, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Running a firm is lonely, even when you're crushing it, and that's why I built the studio. It's a private group of growth-minded architecture firm owners who actually help each other win. Proven strategies, real conversations, fast results. If you are serious about growing, then go to growthitect.com/studio or click the link in the show notes and apply to join us. All right, now let's jump in. All right, well, Bucky, formerly Alex, formerly Alexander, the one that everyone knows, I'm so excited that you're here because you helped to launch the Growthitect podcast. We walked through the entire launch of your firm and even to you winning your first client, and that was, believe it or not, just a little over a year ago at this point now. So I'm really excited to have you back here to talk about, guess what? You haven't stopped. You keep on winning work. So we're actually going to dive into what that looks like for a relatively new firm, right? We're still just a year into business, but what's it actually look like to win that work later on? So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, of course. I'm delighted to be here. And, it's just been great to have started this journey with you and to continue these checkpoints together where, things are happening and I'm just figuring it out as I go. So obviously it's great to connect and to reflect and also get some feedback from you.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome because business ownership is really all about, I heard this from a leader one time and I repeat it over and over again now, which is just like building the plane while you're flying. That is business ownership in a nutshell. You just gotta keep going. If you don't keep adding parts, like the plane's going to fall out of the air. So you gotta keep kind of like building that thing.
That's it. And I find myself, flying that plane, but also like hitting turbulent storms during the process, but keeping it on the same route, and making sure you're on the route. I think that's actually a big part is like you could get derailed quite quickly with the like even the vision, mission and everything when you're getting opportunities. You just need to make sure you're staying on course. And that for me, that just means checking in with where I'm headed.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, it's something I've been thinking about so much lately because I haven't quite figured out how to put it into words yet. But with so many of the coaching and consulting calls I've been having lately, you'd be surprised by how, in my opinion, the biggest challenge is actually firm owners understanding like what their problem actually is. They so often think that it's one thing when it's actually something else. And so much of that is like guiding them to like where the actual problem is and where their attention should actually go relative to like where they think it should go. So that's interesting to think too, just the check-in, which you can't, there's no way to know these things without, checking in is one thing. It's really tough to get that bird's eye view of your business when you're in it. When you are the core of it, it's really tough. So, that's where having other people to bounce ideas off of and other sounding boards can be super helpful.
And part of that is happening in the studio that you have and you've created is where we as business owners can come together and share our thoughts or frustrations. It's an amalgamation of all the highs and the lows, and you can't do that with staff, and it's just not. That's where I think I found with a lot of other business owners, they find a little space for sharing a lot of stuff like that happens in their own practice. So I think that's just always helpful. But also just coming back to the point about like where you're headed and the destination with the business, I think like it's important for me. I wrote out and I have it up on my wall, just kind of different mind maps and things and the reasonings and whys. And I have it there to refer back to and just keep it there and to look at it so that I don't lose track. And I do find myself, I do see subconsciously that I am staying on track, if that makes sense. Like, even though I'm not like looking at it, let's say every hour of every day, things are moving in a way that feels like I'm still on the right path,
Yeah. Well, listen, it's sometimes it's progress over movement, right? you can be moving all that you want, but you might still actually be staying in the same spot. So that's why you need that direction. And I think the thing that's important about that, it sounds like, well, I think this naturally happens if you're actually checking in, like you're saying, but you shouldn't be afraid to change that direction slightly as you're getting more feedback, right? Like take that feedback that you're getting and don't be afraid to make small adjustments to that mission or that vision or those different things. The important thing is that that you have a direction, not necessarily that direction never changes.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into the project that we're going to talk about today. It's another one that you've won since we last chatted, which is great. But tell us a little bit about this project and why it was worth going after for you.
Yeah, well, the project itself kind of came out of the blue. Ultimately, I was actually at a kind of a construction event in Manhattan, and I got a email, a very short email to say, essentially, how are you? How have you been? And would you be available to have a chat? So I ended up jumping on a call 2 days later with someone who I'd loosely known, and they mentioned that they had a project in the city. They were not happy with their current architect, and it was in the early stages, and wanting to know, I think this is actually an important note. They had seen what I was up to and they were following my Instagram, and I was sending out only quarterly emails, and they had just from the quarterly emails and keeping my Instagram ticking over 2 to 3 posts a week. Not that much engagement sometimes, but that's okay. Their people are watching it. And I think that's an important point to reiterate. It does matter. It actually does. So that was how they had kept an eye on me and not been engaging with my stuff. So I didn't know that I was on their radar, but it was. And so they reached out, jumped on a call, I think, after that email was received. And things kind of moved pretty quickly. I reached back into my bucket of what we had talked about knowledge-wise around this tiered, let's say, talking specific about the proposal, I came in with a couple of tiers.
Let's pause actually before we dive into the strategy of of winning the work, because I am excited to hear that. Anytime you say we've got tiers to go, I'm like, let's do it. Let's hear about it. But more about on the project, what is it?
So the project itself is a kind of a mixed program clubhouse, essentially. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it has 4 floors of it's 100 by 100 foot plate. It's an old industrial building in Hell's Kitchen with a rooftop. And so when I say clubhouse, that will mean there's hospitality components. So there's bar, restaurant, there's co-working spaces, there is storage. It's a very interesting brief. And I think, the building is just massive. And it was actually, from a scale standpoint, it's a huge jump up for the practice. I mean, for me, it's a huge project that would, we're looking at least 18 months probably of work in it. Looking at how to staff it was a big thing, but the project itself, it was great opportunity.
Yeah. And I love the note because people are watching whether or not you realize it, right? That was kind of your point there on the things. And that's really the importance of whatever you want to call it, marketing, social media. I don't care what you call it, but just the simple, you can even be doing it poorly, right? And that means and by that I mean hey, you're not even following any of the recommendations of Growthitect, and you're talking about yourself every single time that you do a post or something like that. But at least people are seeing it. I think so often people are overthinking what actually needs to go into that content, and they're underthinking the action itself, which is honestly just doing it. And you're saying, hey, there's a quarterly email, I'm doing a few posts a week. You're also posting on LinkedIn a little bit, but all of that together, I mean, I highly doubt that's taking you more than an hour a week, if that, or something that's actually contributing to that. And that alone gets you this call. And that's the amazing thing about social media, in my opinion, especially when we're talking about organic, you're not paying for it, right? So you literally just need one win, that one email. You literally just need one email, one phone call, one person out of the, hundreds that are seeing but not engaging with your content. You need one of them to hit it at the right time, and to remember you, and to reach out to you, and for that to turn into a project. And it makes it worth it for the entire year, right? And so I feel like it's just such a low barrier to entry to get that exposure that there's no point not to do it, in my opinion.
And
But
and as you know, it takes a minute for you to figure out like even like what to talk about, what to share. But I think something that was helpful before, and we did an exercise where you could actually take different questions or themes that you're interested in, and then actually apply them even per week or per month. And I just think generating ideas is really important, and talking about things that you're either interested in or that clients may be interested in what you're doing and they would be engaged with it. So, I mean, a bit of all that I learned over the first year definitely helped. And I didn't do some things I should have done, and I did do some things that I should have done. And I think, look, you'll agree with this. I think ultimately it's consistency at the end of the day.
you do need consistency, and you
Yeah.
need to be comfortable with failing, like you're talking about. Like, hey, I did some things that I should have done. Well, great, you did it. Like, you're literally not going to find out unless you do it. And there's, I think, such a huge fear of failure that comes from things. And it's like, what's actually the worst thing that could happen from you like posting on social media? It's like the worst thing that could possibly happen is no one engages with your things, which is really more of a emotional hit for you than it is anything else. Like, it really doesn't mean anything to anyone except for to you. And so after you get over that hump, which everyone has to go over, the first time I posted, I got like nothing, right? Everyone has to get over that kind of fear of failure, I think, and push through it and accept the failure, because it's really only failure, in my opinion. It's really only failure if you stop after the result. But if you keep going, then it's just a step along. It's just a stop in the process.
Because like if you do a couple of posts or you do a couple of things and you feel like you're getting little traction or engagement, and you just say, oh no, I couldn't be, it's enough now, I'm not going to continue, it's not working. That's not true. I mean, you've got to do at least 3 to 6 months of consistency to see anything.
That's right. The law of 100, I believe in wholeheartedly. You really have to do something, especially when we're talking about something that's like low effort at that. Like, you need to do 100 posts before you can actually evaluate whether that's a good fit for you. You can't do it for 2 weeks and then decide I haven't gotten anything from it. That's not going to work. Well, of course you haven't gotten anything from it. You have no strategy. You're just guessing. You just started posting. You don't understand what people want to see yet. Like, of course, you don't have enough information yet. You got to keep going. All right, quick break. Here's the deal. No one tells you how isolating running a firm can feel. You're the owner, you're the marketer, you're the salesperson, and somehow you're still guessing. And that is why I created the studio. It's the place for architecture firm owners who want more. More clients, higher fees, real momentum. Inside, you'll get over 100 growth strategies built for firms like yours. Live workshops, resource libraries, sales systems, AI tools. But the best part really is that it is a tight-knit group of owners who push you, who share wins, and who help you grow together. This isn't just another course, it is a business-changing inner circle. If that sounds like what you've been missing, then just go to growthitect.com/studio or click the link in the show notes and apply to join us inside. All right, now back to the show. Well, see, I know for sure there's architects that are listening to this right now, and they're like, I've gotten that call before. I've gotten that call before. I've gotten that request. And there's red flags that go up, right? Because they're thinking, okay, if they're immediately complaining about the architect that they're working with, then it might not be the architect might not be the problem, right? It might be the client. So how do you kind of qualify that process and make sure that they're a good fit for you?
Yeah, well, I think, the first thing was obviously to get on the call. The next step was to meet in person and to actually sit down, have a conversation, start to take down information as you do, a bit of a download on everything that's going on with the project, to ask questions around what was working, what was not working. Specifics around what was the problem with the previous practice, and just getting more of a light shine on all those scenarios gave me a better perspective of what was going on. And, I think ultimately the project wasn't being delivered at the level they were expecting. Was a kind of and they weren't happy with the what was produced. So that was one issue. And I think the second issue was, and this is an interesting one that will lead to the proposal and how I ended up in positioning where I positioned it. They were locked into a contract which was paid per phase, and it was your stages, your classic fixed fee. And they found that the project was evolving, And as the project evolved and they got feedback from investors or people, they couldn't go in and tweak things because once that stage was closed, there was inflexibility built into the contract. And so that was a very big point for them, in that they wanted to bring in someone who could be nimble, who could be a bit more flexible than the previous firm. And also a third pain point for them was that the project manager and the previous firm had been changing a lot and they weren't happy about that. So when they were buying into Studio X or Studio Bucky, they weren't actually getting what they thought they were getting in terms of the service and experience. They wanted the principal or the partner, but in fact, they were getting a project manager that was on rotation, which is another interesting point for all of us to consider. So all of those factors helped me shape up how I was going to approach this next conversation, which was the third meeting with them, where we walked the site. I had brought my iPad with the proposal in it, and I had just shaped it up in different tiers. And I need to recall it, but I obviously had the basic kind of hourly, which we knew would kind of go too far. I had the monthly retainer, and then I had a kind of a hybrid, like, let's just say. But I kind of knew they wanted something in the kind of flexible monthly retainer thing. So I presented those ideas on the site walk, let's say, of the project, to two of the partners. There's four of them, so there's a bit of complexity in that. And they both seem to have jumped without question to the monthly retainer situation, and that we could adapt and in terms of what we were working on each month. And I think they needed to solve some issues with the current design. They needed to look at phasing for the project, all these different subjects. And therefore, they wanted a model that where it wasn't just, we do this phase, it's done, we move to the next. It's the next phase, it's done, we move to the next. So, that was really me listening, I believe, to what their concerns were and also trying to address them. And it seemed to have been executed because it was agreed upon on the site in that moment that we would proceed in that way. And so we locked in the monthly retainer. I went off then from this kind of proposal deck, which was a bit more digestible visually, to an actual proposal that was more contractual. I had listed out the things and all that.
Yeah, after you already had the agreement on which option they wanted, right?
Yeah, which I think is really important, and that's all
Yeah.
learnings from stuff that we work on together, or that there is these key steps that you have to follow to get. Then when I sent the proposal afterwards, there was very little ambiguity.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because it's already, you get to send it and say, hey, here's the document based on everything that we've already agreed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes it so much easier. Yeah. I think I'm so happy to hear this process. I feel like this is exactly how it should go. The agreement, like when you're actually asking them which option works best for you, should absolutely happen with them, whether that's virtually or like on the site, like you have been. But the things that preceded that, I don't want to overlook that, right? Because the only way that you were able to position yourself properly and even kind of like design the tiers, like you said, around their needs was because of the conversation that came before that, right? And I shouldn't even call it a conversation. It's more like it's really an interview process where you are interviewing them in the best way possible, not like a job interview where you're being tested or something like that. But, really where you are asking a lot of questions about the challenges that they're having. What is the biggest challenge? What don't you like about working with them now? And trying to get an understanding of, hey, like, are they truly having a bad experience or are they just not ideal clients? Right. And obviously that's like kind of the first filter you want to get through. And then after you realize, okay, they're not getting what they need out of their architect, then it's like, what is it that's not working? But also just what is it that you want, right? What is it that you're looking for in a partnership? And it's funny because you want to, like, every architect wants to know the answer to these questions. And they're always like, what do I ask to do it? You just ask them. Like, you literally just say, hey, what is it that you're looking for in a partner out of curiosity? What does that relationship look like to you? Do you want to meet all the time? Do you want options? Is it a problem that you can't go back and make changes? They're gonna give you the answer. It's funny because you can literally just like ask them what it is that they want out of it, and that simple question can make a huge difference because they're going to tell you, and then you can use that just like you did to actually inform that proposal that basically those pricing tiers and those options for working with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. I think it was a big learning curve of executing kind of like those steps and listening, which is a big one, and just listening and regurgitating back to them what it is they are asking for, and it puts into practice then that, oh, right, okay, this makes sense, and I think it really helped to have a few touch points with them, to actually go and meet them, firstly in their office, secondly on the site, and kind of just start to build a bit of a relationship and understand that, because that's also a bit more challenging now, is that we've obviously all gone remote and we do more things virtually and stuff. It's hard to make that, are we, because we're looking to build a partnership, and that's kind of one of the key words I heard from them, is like, we're not looking for just an architect, we're looking for a partner in the situation that can actually step in, lead the design, lead the construction of this project, and, be in our pocket essentially with us as we go through this process. So you listen and you kind of like adapt and you use those words and you drive the proposal with the same terminology ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think what's important too is that, I mean, anyone that's been listening here, they already know that like I'm always pushing for people to present those proposals in person, again, whether that's virtually or on site or something. Like, you should actively be walking them through the options for working with you. But sometimes I get, I do a lot of these, right? So I can't do it with every single one, which might be true depending on the type of work that you do and the volume that you have. But you should absolutely still be prioritizing the ones that are really important and the ones that you really want to win and that will be a good fit. And this is a good example. Like you're saying, like, this is a massive project for you're a year into having your firm and you have a 100 foot by 100 foot like industrial slab that you get
multiply by 4 plates.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
like
that's huge.
That you get to have fun with. I mean, honestly, it sounds like a studio project from school. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, and it's not far off it. And I just want to tie back to the first point. I don't know if it's relevant or not, but it's the fact that like it is a project that I would be aiming towards in terms of when I look at like the type of clients and work I want, it's on the list. So there, again, it's these dots and all these little things that you're doing that you might think are insignificant or wouldn't be worth their while. It's the posting. It's the consistency. It's the just checking in with what you're doing. And all these little things start to kind of amalgamate into something.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, because it really is. Often we want it to be these large moves. And there are, you should absolutely have, what you're essentially talking about is like you have a system. It might not be written out, but like you do have a system in place, right? So you need to have some kind of system, some kind of overarching strategy that you're consistently executing on. It might not be written out, but there does need to be like some kind of habitual rituals that need to be happening in your practice in order to kind of see those positive results. I'm curious. So you already touched on one, right? You touched on the fact that they're really looking for a partner in this. What were the other things that you saw them gravitating to? Or I should say, like, what are the other components that really led them to, say yes to you? So I don't want to say easily because there was a lot of work that went into this, but like they're on the spot, like you said, they agreed to us. Like, what were the other things that you realized they were attracted to?
Well, I think there was nuances involved. I think that one of the partners, and you can cut this however you want to cut it, but one of them had Irish parents and identified himself as Irish, and so I'm obviously Irish. And
you are? No way.
But ultimately that played into it, and I'm not saying that helped tip the scale. And it was having those micro conversations while walking the site. Oh,
it's building rapport. Yeah.
Yeah. Where are your parents from? Oh, you're from there. I was in Ireland last summer. I went to visit where my dad is from. This was all, intertwined into it. And I think that helps, I guess, when you're putting yourself up against X amount of other firms. Those little things help. I think, again, it just comes down to the personability, and do they feel like they can get on a call with you every week? Do they think that they'll be okay to listen to you every week? And you're kind of, as you said, during that interview process, you are looking for those little moments of like understanding how this relationship might develop. And, another example would be even with soccer, I brought up how, something about that, and one of the guys was big into it. And so he brought up that he loved that. And it was just in these little small, again, you could call them insignificant details, but ultimately, I think those are the smaller details that get the things over the line, where they go, I can relate to you.
Yeah, at a human level.
At a human level.
Yeah, that's the importance of, like, it sounds like you were doing it in between some things, which I think is fine to do it too. The important thing is that it happens. I always recommend building rapport at the beginning of a conversation before you ever get into business, right? It's like you have to understand each other at a human level. And specifically, like doing research ahead of time, right? Like I recommend, like you find some kind of commonality, right? And this is why. This is exactly why. Like you find a commonality and you start the conversation from that commonality because you know that it's an easy way to start a conversation. Whenever you find something in common with another person, both people or whoever's involved, I guess, even if it's more than that, like everyone becomes more comfortable.
Yeah. And it's a classic case of, I mean, Ireland is a small place, but if ever I meet an Irish person, if it's in New York, if it's in Austin, if it's in DC, they'll always say, "Oh, you're from there. Do you know this person?" It's finding everyone's looking to bridge a connection so
That's
that
right.
you can be on the same page. And it just applies to business to a certain degree where I've come to realize this more as the year has developed and maybe we've said this before, but yes, they can see my Instagram and they can see my website and they can get a vague idea of my vision and aesthetic. But ultimately, they're more interested in the person and the personality, and that's what they're really buying into. And I think this was a good case in point of they were feeling like I was the right person to partner with them because there was a casual aspect, there was a human aspect, but also, I can execute it as well. So as you say, as you know, execution and delivery is one thing, but it's also the actual journey and the experience together, which is the whole other aspect. And it's as important. It has a weight.
I mean, there's different stages of buy-in that clients will go through before they actually choose to engage with you, right? And so you've kind of like, I mean, we've actually talked about all of them here, right? But there's the first one, which is just awareness. Do they actually know that you exist? So how did you capture, how are you doing awareness? Well, you're posting, right? And they're seeing it, right? And then after that, it's like curiosity. They're curious about the work that you're doing. And that comes down to the value of the content that you're sharing, right? Is it value and relevance, really, of the content that you're sharing? Oh, he's talking about work that we're doing, that we're interested in doing. I wonder about that. That's when you reach out to him, right? And then to your point, they want to make sure that they're going to get what they want out of you, the person, and they're clear on what those expectations are. And so, again, the ability to work with you, for you to act more as a partner, for you to understand what challenges they've had in the past. Like that's where you're getting things at a personal level. And then it's the proposal itself. I don't want to say price because it's not always price. And so, it's that proposal itself. It's finding the right offer for them based on their situation that makes it easy for them to say yes. And those are like, it's just those different stages. And if you skip one of them, it's not like it's an immediate no, it just makes it harder, right? It's like the more full that someone is before they get to that final question, which option works best for you or something, before you get to that, everything that precedes that is really building up leverage for you, to make it easier for them to take that next step.
Yeah. And I've, through this first year, I've experienced, I've made the mistakes, like I have gone and sent out proposals without walking people through it. And I think, all of the time, almost, I've not got those projects. So it's just, we all learn through failing. And I've made those mistakes. I've not done it properly. I've not opened the right doors and kept the conversation moving in the right way. And they have, they've come to nothing. So, it was quite reassuring to just, go through that. But also, this was my first project in the city, which is a separate thing. So I'm obviously based in New York.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
All of my projects
at this point.
Yeah. So it was interesting getting to go face to face to do it, to actually meet, to walk the site, to have those touch points with the client and to do it in person. It was really good to get that experience, because I wasn't sure where this was all heading. With would I even get a project in the city?
Right. Yeah. I can imagine if you're somehow getting something everywhere else in the world, but in one of the most dense places, you're still bare. But but to your credit, I mean, I know that I just know from being in contact with you that you've flown out to, I mean, you're with your clients all over the world constantly. For the projects that you are working on. So you're still a big in person, but I understand that you're saying there's risk in doing that before there's a contract signed, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice to have kind of a low barrier to entry there when they're local. You can just go to them.
Yeah. It was just nice to have that option on the table and to we'll go through the process like that and makes virtual and real.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, what would you say to, early firm owners here? Like, and we're a year in now, right? But I just want to wrap it up because it's always so great to talk to you, and understand, what this is like in the early phases, because it's a battle. It's nothing's ever smooth necessarily, but you're really coming out, like you are coming out clean on the other side, which is great. And so, what do you say to people that are considering starting a firm or that are really in those first few years of firm ownership? What would you say to them?
I think one attitude to have towards it is, one way is to see the first year as all of an experiment. I think that's been helpful. So instead of fearing new things and new processes and new softwares and new platforms and experiences, just see it all as kind of one big experiment where posts will go and people will not like it or interact with it, and you just keep experimenting, you keep tweaking. Same with sales processes. You're new to it, and I think you've got to accept that it's going to take a minute to find your way with all of it, but that's fine. It's all a learning curve. So I think just putting on a bit of a kind of a learning experimentation kind of hat, and just going into the year open-minded, and it really helps take a certain weight off your shoulders, because there's a lot of weight. We don't know, what we're making per month when we start out. We don't know many things. We don't know how we're gonna, sign off contracts that are, 8 to 12 pages long. But everything is just an opportunity to learn about what's next. It's and you will just that will keep happening. And I think that's really helped me in my first year, because otherwise I think you would get stuck. You'd end up stuck in the mud, thinking about all of these decisions, all of these issues that you're gonna have. But you just have to flip the perspective slightly and just take it piece by piece. And every day is a new day of experimentation. And I think that's helped me, because I think otherwise, you might not crawl out of bed in the morning. I mean, with all of the different things going on, and that's the fear. People do have the fear. I mean, it's probably why some people just haven't started the practice. Because they've had this vision, but ultimately, how are they going to go through it? But I think, I mean, I wasn't sure would I end up on this journey, and I have, and it's been a crazy year, but I'm really glad I'm on it now, and I'm building the foundations of something I feel that will have substantial weight. And if I just certain attitudes were really helpful throughout that year, that I think other people can adopt and take it as they would start their own thing.
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah. Nothing to add to that, but that's so great to hear that stream of consciousness. And, it is an experiment. You have to push through it. You need to be comfortable with failure, but you need to do it. You need to act so that you can get out of bed and not get overwhelmed by all of the minutia that's going to be coming your way. So we are all so excited for you. We're all rooting for Studio Bucky. And I'm so happy to have you here on the podcast again. So thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for all your support. And, I love being part of Growthitect, the studio that you have, and continuing to grow and learn through all of this.
Okay, Growthitect, thanks so much for tuning in. If you are enjoying the show, then please share it with a friend and leave a review so other amazing architects can find us. And if you are a growth-minded architecture firm owner that wants to surround yourself with others on the same journey, then apply to join us inside the studio. Just go to growthitect.com/studio or click the link in the show notes. I'll see you next time, friends.